Starting in verse 10, he would say, I rejoiced in the Lord greatly that now at length you have revived your concern for me. You were indeed concerned for me, but you had no opportunity. Yet it was kind of you to share in my trouble. See, those few verses, even though he says something important there, if you connect them like that, that's what he's talking about. He's talking about the Philippian church sharing in his trouble, in his spiritual needs. So Paul is saying, thank you for being concerned for me. He's telling the church, thank you for just being concerned for me, even though you had no way to support me physically, you supported me spiritually, which meant so much more. Jesus said that when you receive a prophet or a righteous person, meaning you either take them in as they're traveling or you support them in their ministry, when you receive a prophet or a righteous person, you receive a prophet's reward or a righteous person's reward. But before that, in verse 41 of that chapter, he says, he who receives me, Jesus talking, he who receives me receives the one who sent me. So, Jesus is saying if you receive a prophet or a righteous person, you're receiving me. And if you receive me, then you receive the one who sent me. Remember, Jesus said, in the last days, people will come to me and say, or I will say to them, what about the poor and the widows? How come you never took care of them? I'm paraphrasing. And they will say, what are you talking about, God? That's what we did. And Jesus said, no, you didn't do it, because if you would have done it to them, it would have been unto me. He said, okay, I'm butchering this, I'm sorry. But they were saying, Jesus said to them that you saw me hungry and you didn't feed me. You saw me thirsty and you didn't give me drink. And they said, Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty? And he said, when you saw any of my people hungry or thirsty, you did not feed them. And then he speaks to the righteous people and he says the same thing. And they say, Lord, when did we see you hungry and thirsty? And he says, for that you did unto my people, you did unto me. So when we help a prophet or a righteous person or a missionary or anyone of the sort, we are receiving Jesus. We are doing as unto the Lord. We're furthering his kingdom. And so Jesus says, if you do for these people, you do as unto me. And if you do as unto me, you do unto the one who sent me. You see what I'm saying there? He's tying it all together. That there's community in everything that we do for the Lord. Because no one who's working for the gospel, who's working for the good news of Jesus Christ, is doing it alone. There's no one who's working for the gospel that's flying solo, even if they're by themselves. And those verses prove it. Because he says, if you do unto me, you do unto the one who sent me. If you do for me, you do for the one who sent me. That's what that means. So, when a person works for the gospel, he's working directly for the Lord. And when one is working for the Lord or for any other person and supporting them in the Lord, we all have fellowship together in the Lord. So he says, because you received the prophet or the righteous person, you have received me. And in that moment, you all have fellowship together. Receiving a prophet, receiving a righteous person is worshiping the Lord. Paul said in the last chapter that he desired to know Jesus in the power of his resurrection and the fellowship of his suffering. That by any means possible, he would attain the resurrection of the dead. So when we are in fellowship with the Lord, when he is using us to go out, or he is using us to support a ministry, we have fellowship with him. First, we have fellowship with him in his sufferings. Paul is telling the Philippian church that you supported me in all these things that have happened to me. You were greatly concerned for me. And then, secondly, we will receive resurrection from the dead and an eternal reward from being in communion with the living God. So we receive this resurrection from the dead through our faith in Jesus Christ, and then the reward from being in community, in fellowship with him through the support of righteous people who are spreading the gospel.